All right, it looks like we're live. This is going to be cool. At least I think it's going to be cool. I don't know. This is a little bit off the beaten trail for what I normally teach. And my experience has been so far that people really resist working on their voices. They really resist it. I don't know if it's because you don't understand the tremendous power that a voice has and the unique power that a voice has, or if it's more of a conventional set of resistances and frustrations that have to do with how insecure we can feel while analyzing and working on our voices. Because the voice is it's just a uniquely personal and unusual thing. So, okay, I've got myself all set up here. I've got my water, I've got my breakfast smoothie, and of course, I've got my coffee. As you show up, say hi. Hey, Dave, my friend. Brendan, my friend. Good to see you guys. Let's see. I want to start from offering the perspective that communication, you probably have heard this before, is somewhere around 7% the words that we choose, right? And hi, Rachel. Let's be clear too. Tires are about 7% of a car. All right. And so it's not that words aren't important. Words are tremendously important. But in the spoken medium, if we are given a choice or put in a situation where we have to trust your body language and vocal tonality or trust your words, there's tons of research on this too, by the way. We will overwhelmingly pay attention to what your body language and your voice are telling us. Think about the last time you were in a difficult, painful, contracted argument with a family member, a significant other. And think about how easy it is for misunderstandings to pop up in those moments, right? When you're in a fight, let's just call it a fight. You're in a fight or a harsh misunderstanding with someone. Hi, Allison. And think honestly about how easy it is for people to misinterpret your intent. And for you, if you're being honest, to misinterpret their intent. And now think about how hard you work on choosing your words. So when you put it in that context, can you see that tone of voice is far more powerful and operates on a far deeper level than word choice? Because we will sit there and we will labor over every word, won't we? Trying to say things just right. And when we're doing that, the problem is the pain, the feeling of not being heard, all the stuff that is the reason you're having the fight in the first place comes out in your tone of voice, and it comes out in your body language. There is a researcher on relationships, a guy named Dr. Harville Hendrix, and he did an exhaustive study. And when I say exhaustive, I mean there's been no other study to compare to it in terms of scope, in terms of completeness and thoroughness. And the question he wanted to get to the bottom of was, in mega long-term relationships, so starting at 25 years and going out from there, where the people were still in love with each other, visibly, clearly, easily identifiably still in love with each other, right? Where you could see from watching them walk down the street. What did they have in common? What were the traits, in other words, that all ultra long-term successful relationships had in common? This blows me away every time I think about it and every time I share it. Guess how many he found? Guess how many traits ultra long-term successful relationships had in common? They had one thing and one thing only in common. That kills me. And it should kill you too. Hey, everybody. Sorry, Allison. I saw you say hi on the message, and I realized it was already I already had responded. So there's only one thing they have in common. Think about that. The difference between mega long-term, mega successful love relationships and the ones that fall apart. And I think we can all agree that long-term, rich, rewarding relationships are difficult. Like it's a rare thing, isn't it? 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50 years together. It's a rare thing. And if you can put yourself back in the moment of being in one of those impossible to navigate disagreements with a lover, a wife, a husband, whatever, and you're trying so hard to communicate well, and it's just the harder you try, the worse it goes, then you can really appreciate what must go into a 40-year relationship where love is still present. And so again, I say they only had one thing in common. And by the way, this is over, Harville Hendrix studied over 12,000 of these couples. And the study was like 10 years long. So it was comprehensive, to say the least. It was comprehensive. No, I'm getting to it, Brendan. You caught me building up. It was comprehensive study, to say the least, right? We can trust his conclusion, is my point. The one thing that they had in common, the one thing, was this. Even during moments of extremely difficult communication, both members of these mega successful relationships were able to convey to the other person, with their body language and with their voice, the tone of their voice, that they loved, were concerned about, and respected the other person's opinion. That's it. Hey, Greg, that's the only thing the mega long-term relationships all had in common, was that during the most difficult moments of their relationships, they were able to show with their voice and their body that they respected, cared for, and cherished the opinion of their partner, even when they were in conflict with each other. Now, I don't know about you, but there's a ZZ Top song, and one of the lyrics says, "I've been in love 10,000 times. All I've got to do is remember my lines." And that was me. I mean, I've been in countless frustrating attempts at long-term relationships before finally finding the one that I'm in now. And I will tell you, it is exceedingly difficult. It is exceedingly difficult to achieve that quality while in the midst of fighting to be heard. So I say all that to illustrate to you how powerful the voice itself is. The words that it says are powerful. The words you choose are powerful. But the tone of your voice is far more powerful. By any objective measurement, the tone of your voice is far more influential and powerful than the words you choose. Now, if you are good with words, if you have good vocabulary, you're just stacking the deck in your favor is what you're doing. Okay? So let's get into it a little bit here and the power of your voice. So to try to fit a class on mastering your voice into one training is a laughable effort at best. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you the three main things you need to take away, possibly four, in high-level concepts. I'm not going to get into technique. I'm not going to get into diaphragmatic breathing. I'm not going to get into blending your nasal voice with your head voice, with your chest voice, although that's very, very powerful stuff. I might go into that a little bit, but basically I'm going to try to give you three concepts to take from this. And in these concepts, start to evaluate your own voice for how well or how poorly you do these three concepts. First, though, so we'll do 4 things. I'm going to give you 4 things. The first one is that virtually every one of you, and not just you guys here, I can say virtually every one of you with confidence because virtually everyone needs to will themselves to lower what's called the default tone that you speak from. Your default speaking tone. If you've studied music in any way, shape, or form, you know about notes and pitch. And we all have a tendency to start talking from a certain note or pitch or place, right? Because the throat goes like from the belly up to the mouth, right? We tend to, hey, Robert, thank you. We tend to originate our tone from right above the bend in our throats. This is our most, by and large, this is our default. And so for me, it would be here. This is the lowest tone that I can make that is right above the bend in my throat. Now, I'm guessing that as you listen to this tone and you compare it with this tone, it's a no-brainer which one is more potent, right? Let's see some acknowledgement if you agree. If you notice the difference between me talking like this, which is heady and nasally, and me shifting it down to here, which is in the chest, the top of the chest. If you think that the top of the chest voice is better, put some emojis, some hearts or thumbs. Either one, dealer's choice, hearts or thumbs on the screen. If you understand, if you can feel and hear the difference between this and this, between this and this. One more time, between this and this. This is me talking from where I used to have my default tone start. And this is where I talk from after I've trained myself to blend the top of my chest with my head. So, do you guys perceive the difference there? And is the blended voice that I just talked about better? Let's see some emojis, gang. I am not doing this in a vacuum. I want and I need your help and your feedback and your input. So, okay, some emojis are starting to come. Rachel says, I've been trying to talk in a lower pitch. Good, good. I'm going to quickly give you an exercise that will allow you to start consciously moving what your default tone down lower. Brendan says, Harold, for a group for a few years, I had to learn to project an echo in an empty field. Really helped me to talk from my diaphragm. Excellent. So here is a quick exercise that'll allow you to start being consciously aware of where you start your voice from, your tone. Yeah, Robert, that's right. Not just lower, but also more resonant. So if we start by humming and making it a fairly high-pitched hum like this. You can probably hear that that's up in my head and in my nose. And so what you do is you take that hum and you lower it. One more time. What'll happen as you're doing this is you can feel the vibration change from being in here to being in here, right? Down here. You'll feel the vibration moving downward as you lower the pitch. And what you want to do is you want to stop right when you can feel the vibration, both in the top of your chest and in your head together. So, that's all head. Right there. Right there for me is where I'm blending both of them. That's number one. If you were to do that and only that until you deliberately and consciously changed your default pitch to a lower blended pitch, that would be enough. That would be wonderful. That would make your voice more resonant, more trustworthy, more sexy, and more authoritative. So you'd create all of those things just from that one shift from to right? Okay. Now, we're going to have to just fast forward and assume that all of you miraculously got that because we have limited time here together. Now I want to give you 3 archetypes for your voice. I want you to think about your voice and when you're communicating with people as 3 archetypes. And you're going to want to start blending these archetypes as you need to. Like, you don't turn one on, turn it off, move to the other, turn it on, turn it off, move to the other. You just go effortlessly and quickly back and forth between them to get your point across. Think about changing archetypes the way a boxer changes up punch combinations, right? A boxer never starts and stops. He's just fluid. It's just right there in the middle of the action. He's changing up his combos. That's how you change up your voice. Here are your archetypes: the scholar, the warrior, and the lover. The scholar, the warrior, and the lover. If you're tracking that, give me some emojis across the screen. If you're tracking that there are 3 archetypes I'm sharing with you today, give me some emojis across the screen. I don't care which ones you choose, but let me see that you're tracking, right? This is the part where you participate. This is the audience participation part, or the audience participation portion of our show. Good. Brendan's got it. The rest of you, not so much. Come on, guys. Get off your asses. Let's see some thumbs. Let's see some hearts. Let's see some smiley faces. All right. Well, I knew this was a little bit of a risque topic anyway. I knew that it would be unusual. So, okay, Robert, good. I hear you, but I don't know if I track. Robert, do you grok that I'm going to give you 3 archetypal concepts to work from? If you do, all right, looks like I'm seeing the okay, there's Dave. So I'm seeing some emojis coming across the screen. If you do track that, Robert, then that's good enough for now. And admittedly, again, I'm trying to fit a lot of content into a short time here. A lot of new information for most of you into a short time. And so it'll be an overview. You know, I don't know how I could possibly do it differently in such a short amount of time. But you've got the lover, the scholar, and the warrior. And each one is identifiable by different characteristics. So let's start with the scholar. Right now, I'm primarily speaking to you like the scholar. My words come out like trumpet blasts, right? They are clear, they're confident, and they drive forward. Can you get that, guys? Girls, does everybody understand that? Can you wrap your head around the way that I'm speaking now being called the scholar or the teacher, right? It's as though I'm addressing you from the front of the room. Maybe it's better to think of it as the teacher. Yes, Allison, I hear what you're saying. Mine are delayed. My emojis are delayed. So as the teacher, let's call it the teacher rather than the scholar. As the teacher, I'm speaking to you as from the front of the room, as from the podium, right? And that means that I want cadence, I want clarity, I want enunciation. These are the things that are important from the teacher or scholar voice archetype. So you want rhythmic, even cadence. You want the words to be very clear, so they're coming like trumpet hits, right? Or maybe little jabs. And you want enunciation and articulation. I would, however, suggest that you always want to be aware of enunciation and articulation. So number one, scholar/teacher. Okay. Number two is the lover. The lover whispers more. The lover drops down into this part of the chest more. So it's not a whisper that's intended not to be heard, but it's a whisper that's intended to be heard. It's like a stage whisper. And so I like to move closer to the microphone when I'm giving an example of the lover. It's seductive. And so let's examine a little bit how seduction works. Does seduction run out and grab the other person? Rachel says, that one I got. Good. Seduction doesn't run out and grab the other person. Seduction draws the other person in, right? That's what seduction is. Seduction is a little dance that brings two people closer together. If you think of that, when you want to change the rhythm, when you want to have people start paying closer attention, when you're actually seducing, when you want to give a pattern interrupt, right, from the scholar or the teacher, the lover is a very, very powerful thing to switch to, because you go from speaking from the front of the class like this and giving little jabs and trumpet blasts with clean articulation down to something that's more intimate. It's you got to pay closer attention here. And do you see when I do that, how it shifts your awareness immediately? I go from this, and I'm talking to you here with power and authority and clarity and conviction, down to here, where, look, it's time to pay attention now. It's time to shift your awareness and get close. Do you guys see the difference there? I'm going to look for feedback here. I want feedback on this. I want to know if you're tracking this. And not just the difference, but do you see the way it shifts you? Can you be aware? If I go from here and I'm talking here and suddenly I drop down into this and I'm talking here, how it shifts you. Like you're like, okay, you're with me, you're with me, you're with me. And then I shift into that lover voice and it's like, whoa, shoom, right? It draws you in. Okay, good. So we've covered then the scholar teacher and the lover and the warrior. The warrior would be most of what Barack Obama did in his inauguration speeches and his really, really great campaign speeches. Yeah, be careful when you hear that voice, Dave. So I want to tell you guys a story about Barack Obama and about how he was literally trailing behind in the 2012 presidential campaign. And he brought in a speech coach and a charisma coach. And they had him do a couple of things. But one of the things they had him do was pay more attention to his natural speaking cadence and emphasize it. And prior to this, his speaking coaches were telling him he couldn't speak that way. So if you notice about Obama, he leaves a lot of space. And it creates, because he's refined it, it creates this air of him being exceedingly thoughtful. He leaves a lot of space in the middle of the things that he says. And when he does that, you can't help but feel like he's being very, very considerate to every word that he's choosing. There's immense power in this. Like, it's crazy how much power there is in doing this. And yeah, Brendan, this stuff is straight from presentation. This is straight from my public speaking program. Hey, Hannah, good to see you. Glad you're popping in, and then you got to pop out because it's past your bedtime. So the warrior, a good way to think of the warrior is that every word is like driving a flag into the ground, right? Like every word is a proclamation. And the main characteristics that the warrior voice has is they're not afraid of silence. Many of you, most of you, don't know how to strategically use silence in the rhythm and the cadence of your speaking. But when you get it, it leaves people hanging, right? And when you leave people hanging, they have to pay attention to the next thing you say. Unless you leave them hanging too long, then they'll finally just say, fuck it, and leave. So there's an art to it. But you want to, as the warrior, each word is more. So as the scholar, if each word is a jab, with a warrior, you'll pick certain words and they will become, just devastating haymakers. And so how do you do that? You punch them up. See what I just did there? You punch them up and then you mix in silence. One of the things I like to say when it comes to silence is that there's never been a powerful, influential, or charismatic person in the history of the world who was concerned about making people wait on their every word. There's never been a powerful, charismatic, or influential person in the history of the world who had a problem with making people wait for what they were going to say next. Now, I know you guys are savvy, and I know that you're noticing that I'm doing these things as I'm teaching them. So can you key in? Yeah, Dave, that's right. Passion followed by silence. Can you key in on your own experience? Because there's a meta experience happening here, right? I'm teaching you these things, and then I'm doing them as simultaneous to teaching them. And what's happening is it shifts your awareness. It upshifts and downshifts your awareness and your nervous system. So I'm constantly doing pattern interrupt. Just as soon as you get used to one thing, I'm changing it up. And then as soon as you're used to this thing, I change it up again. So can you feel? Can you be self-aware? Can you evaluate what's happening inside of you as I do this? I'm not saying this to be a braggart. I'm not saying this to boast, but this is, it's a way of communicating that reaches in and grabs your nervous system, right? And this is what I want you guys to understand. If you can reach in with deliberate communication methodologies, the easiest of which are these 3 archetypes, and sort of connect directly to people's nervous systems, they will follow you much more closely. They will follow what you say much more closely. They will hang on your every word. And so in a very sort of top view, snapshot kind of way, this is the potential power that mastering your voice holds for you. Let's check in. Let's see how people are tracking. If you guys are enjoying what I've taught you so far, then give me some comments, give me some emojis. Now's the time to just let it fly. Just let it go crazy. Let it go nuts. It can be any emoji you want. It can be any comment you want. But I really want to know if you're seeing the power in this, if this is meaningful to you. This will help Brendan greatly as he makes more live videos. Yeah, to convey his message more. That's right. Rachel says, great stuff. Robert says, top notch. Outstanding. So the hardest part of all this is going to be turning the lens on yourself and evaluating your own voice. It is just a deeply insecure thing. It just is so weird. So I want you to know that I'm still not a huge fan of my own voice, but intellectually, academically, I can understand what I'm doing. And I can look at, thank you, Hannah. I can look at the reactions that I get from the world and the feedback I get from the world, and I'm able to say, okay, the world likes my voice, and that's good enough for me. I'm able to not have to come to a place where I'm like overly pleased with the sound of my own voice. You know what I mean? I know it's a tool, and I know it's a tool that I can use well. And that's enough for me. Brendan says, I was already intuitively doing this from previous coaching, but this puts more substance and awareness to what I was doing. That's outstanding. That's outstanding. Now, let me give you guys one sort of final thing to think about. I've really taught you, the thing that the 3 archetypes I've given you have in common is they all encourage you to slow down a little bit, because most of us, we speak too fast in addition to speaking from too high of a pitch, right? So it's a caricature, but most of us are speaking like this all the time. And it's just utterly unattractive. But I do want you to understand that with these different ways of slowing down and bringing people in, you do need to be able to switch that up. And at certain times, you've got to be able to deliver some of your information and your words rapid fire, like I just did there. The reason being is because contrast is the whole key here, right? You want to contrast fast with slow. You want to contrast deep with high. You want to contrast loud with soft. You want to contrast power with suppleness, right? The whole thing is really all about contrast. So let's see. Yeah, Russell Brunson never slows down. Dave says, sometimes fast communication too. Yes. Rachel says, it's been giving me more awareness. Perfect. If you really want to be a great communicator, well, first of all, actually, first thing is your body language. And I may or may not go into that in a future training. But the first and foremost thing is your body language, because it's very, very difficult to put powerful tonality on top of weak body language. They're inextricably linked. Right? And so ideally, you want a platform of powerful body language on top of which you want a layer of powerful tonality, on top of which you want a final layer of powerful words. That's the holy grail. But for now, let's remember humming like this, and moving it to where we can sense the vibration in the top of our chest and in the bottom of our head, like the jaw area. So it's kind of like all in here. And that becomes your starting pitch, your default starting pitch. Rachel, I could. Yeah, I could. If you guys want more of this, I'd be happy to. But I want to stay focused on the straightest line towards success. But yeah, I'd love to dive in more to this stuff. I love this work myself. This is what I started off with in this space. So the first thing then is the humming, right? And moving your default starting pitch down lower. The second thing is the 3 main archetypes. The lover, we'll call it the teacher. I think teacher is a little bit better than scholar. And the warrior, the lover, the teacher, and the warrior. And the last thing to do is to remember that you've got to also turn the speed and the intensity up from time to time, right? Dave says we want more of this. Rachel wants more of this. Okay. All right. And so you don't want everything that you say to be this like disciplined exercise in slow, methodical style of delivery. You want to mix that with up tempo, and so it can be going from this to this up here, right? It can go from this to this up here. That kind of feeling, the back and forth, because again, everything is about context and contrast. Everything in communication, all the subconscious stuff happens through contrast. You keep people's attention by changing it up, changing it up, changing it up. And yeah, that's it. And that's it. All right, you guys. Thank you so much for those of you that did tune in. I hope this changes completely the way you think. And I promise you, okay, Brendan, duly noted. I promise you now that you've watched this, you're never going to look at other people's videos or public speaking again the same way. And unfortunately, it's going to ruin most people for you. But so remember, lower your default starting pitch. Think about the 3 archetypes, the lover, the teacher, and the warrior. And then from there, understand that sometimes you got to upshift into a higher gear. Just incorporate those things, and your voice will really rapidly start to be much more appealing, much more attractive, and much more powerful. All right. Thanks, guys.